But I want to tell you about Nancy Pelosi first. And I want to congratulate the folks at the Washington Free Beacon. Now, we're going to take this step by step, ladies and gentlemen, so you can see how corporatism and crony capitalism works to rip you off, where you're subsidizing millionaire and billionaire leftists. They don't just support big centralized government out of ideology. They also support it because it makes them incredibly rich. Illegitimately so. So turn up the volume, push away the distractions, and here we go. The top Democrat in the House of Representatives steered more than $1 billion in subsidies to a light rail project that benefited a company run by a high-dollar Democratic donor in which her husband is a major investor. The facts. When cloud computing giant Salesforce, that's the name of the company, Salesforce, sold a large plot of land to the Golden State Warriors in April, it had House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi to thank for helping to swell real estate prices in the area. Pelosi has worked for more than a decade to steer taxpayer funds to a light rail project in San Francisco's Mission Bay neighborhood, where Salesforce had planned a new campus. Experts say the project boosted the value of Mission Bay real estate generally. The company's CEO, Mark Benoif, is a high-dollar Democratic donor. Pelosi and her leadership pack are among the recipients of his generous campaign contributions. Pelosi's husband is also a major Salesforce investor. Remember, Salesforce is the company. Pelosi's tireless advocacy for federal support for San Francisco's light rail system has come under scrutiny for potentially enriching another liberal billionaire, hedge fund manager Tom Steyer. Remember him? Opposed to the Keystone Pipeline, putting up $100 million behind left-wing candidates in the Democrat Party. Remember him? Now, in Salesforce's case, Pelosi's work appears to have financially benefited not just a Democratic mega donor, but also a company in which Pelosi's direct family owns a large stake, as well as valuable real estate holdings in her husband's portfolio. Salesforce paid $278 million for 14 acres in Mission Bay in 2010. It bought the land from a group called Alexandria Real Estate Equities, which purchased it from another company called Focal MB, a division of Democratic financier Tom Steyer's hedge fund. Stay with me. The exact dollar figure of its sale to the Warriors was not released. We paid a very pretty penny, the team's owner said. Now, real estate values in Mission Bay have skyrocketed over the past decade as the city works to transform the former industrial neighborhood. Quote, from a decrepit and seemingly abandoned old rail yard 15 years ago, Mission Bay has sprouted into San Francisco's fastest-growing neighborhood, unquote. So reported the San Francisco Business Times last year. Now, San Francisco real estate is some of the most expensive in the nation, and Mission Bay has seen some of the fastest-growing property values in the city in recent years. Contributing to that rise has been the expansion of the city's 3rd Street light rail line. Studies on the financial effects of public transit projects, including one that looks specifically at the 3rd Street expansion, have found that they increase property values in surrounding areas. Pelosi has been the expansion's champion at the federal level. Since 2003, she has secured well over $1 billion for the project in the form of earmarks, federal funding agreements, and stimulus disbursements. That work has come under scrutiny since it was revealed that Farallon was a major landholder in Mission Bay, as Pelosi, a recipient of the Steyer campaign contributions and an ally of the billionaire environmentalist, steered taxpayer money to the light rail extension. Now, that's the key. She's steering an enormous amount of your money into this light rail system. It's pushing up the value of real estate enormously. It's pushing up the value of real estate for a couple of companies in particular. And one of those companies, her husband invests in. Her husband is an investor. A 2004 real estate deal gave Farallon ownership of roughly 2 million square feet of commercial space in Mission Bay. Salesforce's planned campus in the area was a bit smaller, but still significant. According to documents submitted to the San Francisco Planning Department, its 4 buildings would have compromised nearly 1.5 million square feet. It's this Salesforce company I want you to stay focused on. An increase in value of Salesforce's real estate from 2010 to its sale this year would mean a financial gain for the company and its investors, one of whom is Mr. Pelosi. According to her most recent personal financial disclosures, that is Pelosi's, filed in May of this year, Paul Pelosi, her husband, owns a stake in Salesforce worth between $500,000 and $1 million. Pelosi first invested in the company in 2000 when he, Paul Pelosi, purchased between $15,000 and $50,000 in stock. Pelosi seems to have acquired shares in a private offering prior to the company's 2004 initial public offering. Its stock has soared since then. It debuted at $3.75 a share in 2004. As of today, it's $53 a share. Wow. Pelosi's office did not respond to questions about whether that might constitute a conflict of interest. Well, only in Washington would it not constitute a conflict of interest. And I'm sure Mr. Holder will be all over this. Now, Pelosi's investments in companies with business before the House came under intense scrutiny in 2011 and 2012 when Congress debated measures governing insider trading by members of Congress. An eventual law imposing stricter regulations on members' financial activities even included language informally dubbed the Pelosi provision due to her and her husband's participation in IPOs of companies actively lobbying for or against federal legislation. By the way, it's not just Pelosi. Many of them do this. Dianne Frankenfeinstein's husband, they play this game too. Well, I don't know what my husband does. He's very independent. I don't know what he's doing. Much of the information in Pelosi's other members' insider trading came to light in the Hoover Institution fellow Peter Schweizer's book, Throw Them All Out. Of course, you know we had Peter on the show at the time. But in addition to his reporting on Pelosi's IPO participation, Schweizer revealed that her husband owns property in San Francisco that will likely benefit from this 3rd Street light rail extension. 2 stops on the extended light rail line are about 3 blocks from a 4-story office building owned by Paul Pelosi. According to disclosure forms, the property at 45 Belden Place is worth an estimated $1 to $5 million. He made between $100,000 and $1 million in rent from the property last year. The National Association of Realtors says that high-quality mass transit, like the 3rd Street light rail, can increase property values over 150%. There's a sweet spot for obtaining the maximum transit premium. 2 to 4 blocks away is ideal, they wrote. Well, that's roughly the distance from Salesforce's planned campus to a Mission Bay stop on the light rail as well. And Pelosi's office building happens to be square in the middle of it. In addition to the potential financial benefits of the transit premium from investors such as Pelosi, the light rail extension worked to the advantage of Salesforce itself. The company, which would not say whether it realized a gain on its sale to the Warriors, is held by a high-dollar Democratic donor. CEO Mark Benoit bundled $500,000 for Obama's re-election campaign. He's donated another $300,000 to Democratic candidates, party organs, interest groups, and so forth and so on, according to data compiled by CQ Moneyline. Benoit is more bipartisan in his donations than many prominent Obama supporters, but his Democratic donations dwarf what he gives Republicans. So here's the bottom line. Paul Pelosi has investments in a company that benefits directly from this light rail line. He's got an office building that likely benefits directly from the placement of one of the stations on the light rail line. Pelosi has been pushing this to the tune of over $1 billion over the last 10 years. And I want to ask you folks a question. Why isn't this criminal? Why is it that when multimillionaires and billionaires use our tax dollars to enrich themselves with this inside-outside game, inside politicians, outside donors, and corporatists, why isn't this a crime? Why shouldn't Nancy Pelosi be compelled to answer for this? Why shouldn't she be dragged in front of a federal grand jury and panel to investigate this? And how is this legal? How can this possibly be legal? when a prominent member of Congress keeps pushing a project from which she and her husband and her family benefit.